Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.
Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Welcome to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. I'm Jean Till, and on today's show, we're visiting with Archbishop Emeritus Elden Curtiss of the Archdiocese of Omaha on celebrating his not 50th anniversary of ordination, his 50th anniversary of his consecration as a bishop.
Truly remarkable.
Wow.
I think he is one of the only Paul VI bishop, I believe, in the United States. But here we are in May, and the May flowers are springing forth. I don't know if you're a gardener, Jean, or not, but
I was before we got a condo, and now I just have one potted plant outside. But I'm making do. Okay.
And of course, yesterday, St. Joseph the Worker Day,
Yes.
our tribute and prayers with all those who make their living by the sweat of the brow, the many people in the trades and other things, and the dignity of work that they reflect with St. Joseph, and obviously St. John Paul II commended work to us, Laborem Exercens, and other ways in which that dignity continues to come forth. We're spreading around the chrism again in recent days and days ahead. St. Mary Holy Cross, St. Peter Council Bluffs, St. John the Apostle Norwalk, St. Patrick in Neola with St. Columbanus in Weston, the 5 Shelby County parishes, St. Peter Defiance, St. Joseph Erling, St. Mary of
They're all
Assumption in
together,
Panoa,
though, right?
Our Lady of Fatima in Portsmouth, and of course St. Michael in Harlan, and then also the Basilica of St. John. I, however, have been, this is through the wonder of electronic communication, partaking in the Alpha Conference, the International Leadership Conference, and so that's been a great spirit-led experience. More on that, perhaps in our one or future shows, but the Anglican roots of the Alpha movement, but obviously appropriated by the Catholic Church, and so that collaboration. Last week we had Father Jason Catania kind of sharing with us his own path, and so may God continue to bring us all, that all may be one. And isn't that a great segue to bringing on aboard Archbishop Elden Curtiss, whose Episcopal motto, that all may be one, that we might all be one. Welcome, Archbishop Curtiss. Thank you for taking time with us.
Well, Bishop Joensen, I thank you for inviting me. Yeah, that's my motto. I was rector of the seminary when I got the notice about going to Helena as bishop, and I thought I better find some kind of a model that will pull us together. So that's what I chose.
If it was good enough for our Lord, it's good enough for you. John 17.
But at the 100th anniversary of the diocese, the Archbishop Portland got up and he said, "You know what the motto of Archbishop Bishop Curtiss is, that we all may be one, or else." So my reputation wasn't too hot at that time.
Not exactly a gunslinger, but you in ways of impressing and prevailing upon people in your will. So, just wonderful to have you. The actual date of the event is April 28th. That you were.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So 50 years as a bishop and 67 years as a priest. Well, God has been good to you, but
almost 68 years as a priest.
Yeah, so let's give all credit where credit is due on this. The native of Oregon, correct on that? And growing
I grew up in Oregon, yeah,
in Eastern Oregon.
I was rector. I was rector of Mount Angel Seminary in Oregon, the Portland Archdiocese, when I was named bishop. But I actually grew up in the Baker Diocese, Eastern Oregon, small rural diocese, I loved rural country and farming, and I thought that was going to be my life. But I got 2 years of being the pastor the way I wanted out of 68.
Were you a farm boy, or was your family a farm?
Well, I grew up in the town, but the grandfolks had a farm, But I grew up in a little town of Baker, Oregon.
And, of course, now we're kind of proud in Iowa that Bishop Tom Hennon of Baker, a native of the Davenport Diocese, is now the bishop there. So
that's right. He's the bishop there now. That's wonderful.
And he's the youngest bishop in the country, and so we have both poles of the spectrum here.
What is his age? I don't know what he is.
I believe he's 48. He might have had a birthday.
I think 48.
Yeah.
Well, I was 44. I was the youngest bishop ordinary in the country when I was named. And too young, actually.
More on that, Gene. So that's an intriguing remark. We'll come back to that then. Okay.
Yes, we will be back with Archbishop Emeritus Elden Curtiss of the Archdiocese of Omaha on celebrating his 50th anniversary of his consecration as a bishop. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network. Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. On today's show, we're visiting with Archbishop Emeritus Elden Curtiss of the Archdiocese of Omaha on celebrating his 50th anniversary of his consecration as a bishop.
So we think about what we call the munera, the official charisms and duties of a bishop as priest and pastor and leader of people, sharing the charism of Christ himself. As a young man drawn to the priesthood, did you know at a certain age that God was calling you to the priesthood?
You know, I think I knew it from the beginning of my life. My mother reminded me that I played saying Mass when I was about 5 years old. And so it's been in my crawl ever since I was born, I think. So I think I was headed to priesthood right from the beginning. It was amazing.
And a kind of unbroken path then. That's wonderful. So
pretty much unbroken. That's right.
And parochial school or public school?
Yeah, Catholic school. Baker had both a grade school and a Catholic high school. They're closed now, but I went 12 years to school there. The Franciscan sisters and then the local priests that taught there. I loved the school, loved the people. And that was part of, I think, of my development was to have that kind of support as a kid. You know, both as a grade school and high school. And I was very close to the priests and the sisters. And I think that helped with you. In fact, one of the priests, since he knew I was going to go to the seminary, he said, "You're going to need some Latin." So he tutored me in Latin for the last 2 years of my high school so that I'd have some Latin.
What a blessing.
That's a step up.
You know, the seminary in those days, you had to have Latin, you know. In fact, our theology, the pastoral theology course was taught in Latin. So
wow.
It was good that I had that.
And that was the only option because I know, for instance, in the Archdiocese of Dubuque, there were two tracks going on for those who were more academically adept. That the Latin track would be there, and then there was also an English track. But it was all in Latin. This was all pre-Vatican Council II, and that was there. It was the language of the Church. As you were drawn to the priesthood, and just looking in retrospect, did you feel a special attraction or charism of teaching? And every priest is a teacher in some respects.
No, I was in a small rural diocese, and I enjoyed rural people, and I wanted to be a pastor. My aim was to be a pastor in one of the parishes in Eastern Oregon. Oh. That was the only goal that I had for myself, and it was a good goal. I loved the people of Eastern Oregon. The population, we were only 8% Catholic in that Eastern Oregon in those days, and so it was kind of a mission area in a lot of ways, and that's what I was aimed at. I aimed at that.
Was there any anti-Catholic sentiment or ostracism that you had to kind of confront that maybe
No, it was only in Portland. Baker was very rural, a small diocese.
People were more accepting and neighborly.
There's more people there now. The Hispanic population has increased the Catholic numbers. It's a little more Catholic now than it used to be. But at that time, it was. Oregon was kind of part of the South, in a way. The Southern, it was kind of anti-Catholic Baptist, when I was growing up. My dad remembers the Klan marching and burning a cross in Baker when he was a kid, so we were too far away from
You've answered my question, and there definitely
I was ready to do battle. I said, that's my cup of tea. I'll deal with those people.
Yeah, you've never flinched before conflict or anything else. Was it the Benedictine abbot and rector at Mount Angel who beckoned you to come, your bishop, to release a priest to come and be on the?
I went to the seminary in Seattle with Sulpicians running that when I was young.
Okay.
And I never went to Mount Angel. They came looking for me. I was pastor out in a small rural parish, and they needed to do something. They had, because Mount Angel, we got to the point where they're mostly training diocesan priests, and they needed diocesan input, and they wanted somebody to set up the pastoral training program. And so they came the first year I was pastor out in Jordan Valley, and which was a Basque parish, by the way.
Oh,
and,
really?
Because there was sheepherders out there in those days. And but second year I acceded that maybe I should do it if that seemed to be the call. And my bishop then had gone to Mount Angel, and so he said, well, maybe I better release you. Maybe you should go. They're in trouble. So I said, all right. So that's how I ended up at Mount Angel in the Portland Archdiocese. Oh. And I remember I was there just 1 year, and I was complaining about everything that was going on. And the deans got together and said, well, all right, we heard you. We'll make you president rector. At 39, I was president rector of the Olligat and the college and even a great Catholic high school.
Wow.
And I said, how did this happen?
They saw something there.
I said, I learned my lesson. You better quit complaining.
Well, when you're a prophet, there are various outcomes. But
it was amazing. Well, because they were teaching. They had the guys reading modern theologians, and I kept saying, well, who's going to teach them the tradition of the church, the continuity of the tradition of the church? How are they going to have roots? How are they going to be rooted if we don't set up a program and connect them with the traditions of the church? And so when I became rector, we changed the program, and that's what we started doing. And it was kind of the renewal. We didn't have a program for priestly formation at that time.
No, that's right.
That only came later. In fact, I worked on one of them as a rector, one of the developments of the program. But that was a good experience. And
did you have to, with some faculty members, kind of say thank you for your service, but it's no longer needed? Or
some of the faculty, well, I had trouble. I told the abbot when they asked me to be rector, and the Archbishop Dwyer was kind of conservative, and he wasn't happy with what was going on. So he and the abbot agreed that I should be rector even at that young age. So I said to the abbot, well, I'll accept only one condition. I'm going to run this place the way I think it needs to be run, and I'll probably fire a Benedictine. And as soon as they come running over to you, you better support me, or I'm out of here. I didn't ask for this job. And sure enough, right after I took over, one of the young monks who'd come back with a doctorate in canon law was teaching the students how to get around the law. And I said to him, hey, I got news for you. I said, you're supposed to teach them respect for the law, not how to get around. Well, I've got a doctorate, and you're young. And I said, listen, you do it, you teach what the church wants, or you're out of here. He said, you can't fire him, I'm a Benedictine. I said, you're fired. And he went running over to the abbot. The abbot called me and says, well, what do I do with Father? I said, well, listen, he probably isn't going to last. But I said, put him in charge of the pigs or something. Give him something to do. Teach him a lesson.
Even our late Holy Father Francis, whose 1 year death anniversary was a recent week, he would have enjoyed that, as he had a farm and had people out there working with the livestock in the Jesuit community.
That's why when Helena found out I was coming to bishop, they were all upset because my reputation had preceded me, and I followed Bishop Hudhausen, who had come home from the council and said, everything's up for grabs, everything's new, and that's the diocese I inherited as bishop. I said, wait a minute.
Maybe not by accident.
Talk
about that, the cusp of being, at the Abbey and the seminary, And Vatican II is unfolding, and all the ferment of the Spirit, and yet many different interpretations coming out that, as you've just alluded with Archbishop Hunthausen. What was that like for you? Were you reading everything that was coming out, and as various documents were being published? And you're rector of a seminary. Vatican II is happening. And what was that ferment like for you, and the enthusiasm? Was there an upheaval there? Was it kind of like, well, we'll kind of absorb this and we'll be discerning and we'll let the church kind of discern where the impact of all these things, or was it a rather tumultuous time?
Well, I was ordained in 1958, 4 years before the council started in '62, and I had lived through that. And what I discovered was that it was, I was excited with the doctrines of the council. I read them all. That's why I was dangerous. I'd read them and knew what they said. And I thought it was new vitality for the church. But then the way it was interpreted by some of the progressives, they were going beyond the council with a lot of speculation, and that was hurting the church. And so I said, well, now, I believe in the council, I accept the council, but we have to stay within the limits of the council. And so I had to but I made the transition. It was difficult at first. I remember the first time I celebrated in English, which I was very unhappy. I loved the Latin. First time I had to face the people celebrating the Mass, I was very uncomfortable. But then I grew. This is what the church wanted. I'll do it. But the problem was that people interpreted the council in inappropriate ways, and it was John Paul II. And I served 15 years on the Pontifical Council of the Family, and I was with him every year for 15 years. And what he did, he interpreted the council according to the traditions of the church and brought it back into proper focus. And that's why I really respected John Paul II and supported him.
Yeah, and even prior to being named pontiff, he was doing this in the Archdiocese of Krakow. He was interpreting the council to his people. So it was just an organic experience for him as he'd interpreted the council to the people of his Archdiocese of Krakow, and then he's the universal pastor. And so what a great grace and God's providence that he was appointed there. Any anecdotes with St. John Paul II that, something maybe that kind of sticks in your mind that, his humor, his liveliness, you two would be a good match, I would think.
I had prawns with him one time in the apartment after the meeting of the Council of the Family that I was on, and I was sitting next to him, and he says, what shall we talk about? And I said, well, Holy Father, I just been reading John Henry Newman on development of doctrine. Oh, so important for the council, how doctrine develops, but it has to be developed from its roots. There has to be continuity, but there has to be development. And I said, yes, that's wonderful. He says, well, why, that's the basis of the council. Well, I think you're right. Second Vatican Council, because of John Henry Newman. So God bless him.
And now a doctor of the church, so thankfully some decades later. So Helena, a diocesan college, Carroll College, there aren't that many. Was your involvement with the college, and did that help to form and call forth priests for the presbyterate of Helena?
The program we had for pre-seminary was very important, and Austin Vetter, who's the bishop there now, he's been very good about promoting vocations, and their numbers are up. And of course, I worked with George Thomas. He was my third successor at Helena, who's now the Archbishop of Las Vegas, and he continued to work very much to that direction. My successors have been really wonderful there. Just like my success, I had two successors here too, so I've lived through a lot of bishops over the years. But I'm impressed with the mindset, the understanding of the broader understanding of the church and the support for vocations to priesthood and consecrated life that these bishops represent. It's been wonderful to see that and to watch it develop in the time that I've been a bishop.
That's beautifully said, and we're coming up soon on a break, so I don't want to give you a protracted question here or anything, but 17 years in Helena, did you think that's where you would finish out your episcopacy, or was there a sense that maybe the Holy Father would be interested?
I can't hear you again when you repeat the question.
I'm just asking if there was a sense after 17 years in Helena that's where you would conclude your episcopacy, or did you have a sense that maybe you'd be called elsewhere?
Oh no, I thought after 17 years I was well established there, and it pulled together. The diocese was pulling together in the way that I had hoped it would, and I thought that I'm sure that's where I was going to end up. It was in Helena, yeah.
Archbishop, we need to take a little break, so we'll have people hanging on the precipice of Omaha here.
Well, we will be right back with Archbishop Emeritus Elden Curtiss of the Archdiocese of Omaha on celebrating his 50th anniversary of his consecration as a bishop. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network. Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen.
So called by Pope John Paul II to become Archbishop of Omaha, the nuncio, I imagine, gave you the call, and you were surprised.
Well, yeah, I was. Because I was, when you put 17 years into a diocese, it's part of your whole life, and I wasn't expecting to move. In fact, it was rare for somebody from the West to come towards the East to the Midwest, Most of the time, our bishops came from the East to the West. And so there's only two of us, I think, in the history that came from the West to the Midwest. And so it was a surprise, but the diocese was well put together. The Bishop Peshian had been was a wonderful bishop, and the diocese was very peaceful when I got compared to what I inherited in Helena. So it was a joy for me.
And in a robust Catholic area, a high-level Catholic population, and many institutions, schools, and parishes, was there a sense of, well, I've got to keep this ship going here in this way, or did you begin to see areas for innovation and growth in your own pastoral ministry? There's a Catholic atmosphere here that is healthy, I think, and it's a good archdiocese. So I appreciate that. In fact, I was going to tell you something. I got a signed letter from Pope Leo, congratulating me on 50 years as a bishop, and letting me know that he appreciated my work here in the Archdiocese, and with especially for vocations, promoting vocations to priesthood and consecrated life, which is so important. Beautiful. Yeah, and this is the word on the street, is that he takes time for personal notes on occasion. I just can't imagine as the universal pastor, but that's I'm glad that that solidarity with him, that the oneness that you've known with the successor of Peter in this way. The relationship with Creighton University, is that, again, we can kind of continue with that education thing. The Jesuit community, has that been a kind of a winding path, or is that the asset that is both in healthcare and forming young people in the Archdiocese?
I have to tell you, Bishop Joensen, I've been impressed with the Des Moines Diocese too. You're doing some great things over there, and I appreciate it very much.
Well, you're very kind, and we're neighbors, so that we can get along and collaborate in a very beautiful way. The challenges faced, we have about a minute and a half left, and just weathering this time. We know the darker cloud that descended in the 90s and 2002 with the charter. Was that something that, as a bishop, Archbishop made a very difficult time for you personally?
Well, I look at the recent statistics about the growth of the church in this country, the people coming into communion with the Catholic Church. There's a dynamic at play here in the Archdiocese, and I think throughout the country, because of Leo, our Pope, and because of the mess that the world is in, and the struggles that are going on, there's a growing awareness that faith, that the church presents a solidarity, a unity that the world needs, that society needs, and I see that happening here and across the land, and I'm very much encouraged by where we're at right now.
Well, and you're a great apostle of hope, a personal inspiration to me, Archbishop Curtiss, the few times I've been able to be on retreat with you, and your dynamism is undimmed. And thank you for all that you've been, inspiring young priests and all of us. I look forward to the occasion in the weeks ahead to toast you, raise a glass in your honor in person. But in the meantime, may God continue to bless you and grant you many more years here. So thank you very much for taking time with us on the show.
Bishop, thank you. You're a great neighbor. God bless you.
This has been another edition of Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. Thanks to our guest and to all of our listeners in Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota, or wherever you may be, to the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
You can hear Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen every week on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.